Thousands of lives evaporated into the scorching desert sand in mere hours, a horrifying reality. The Second Battle of El Alamein was a true turning point, a desert inferno that forever shifted the tide of World War II in North Africa. General Erwin Rommel, the legendary Desert Fox, made his desperate last stand commanding his Panzer Army Africa with 9 battle-hardened divisions and some 100,000 men. Against him stood General Bernard Montgomery's 8th Army, a formidable force of 13 divisions numbering over 200,000 soldiers, supported by more than 1,000 tanks, including the powerful Sherman and Grant models. The brutal engagement commenced on October 23, 1942, with Operation Lightfoot, a massive Allied artillery barrage followed by infantry advancing through treacherous minefields and fortifications. Axis forces possessed about 500 tanks, a mix of German and Italian units, and some 400 anti-tank guns dug in defensively. The fighting was relentless. For days, Allied troops faced fierce resistance, pushing slowly through the well-prepared Axis lines. Montgomery's plan focused on wearing down the enemy, a brutal attritional struggle in the unforgiving Egyptian landscape. The first phase saw heavy casualties on both sides, with Allied tank losses reaching around 500 vehicles, but their superior numbers allowed them to absorb these blows better. Rommel's supply lines were stretched thin, a critical weakness exploited by Allied air superiority and naval interdiction. By November 2nd, the tide had irrevocably turned, with Operation Supercharge launching fresh Allied attacks that broke through the remaining Axis defenses. The subsequent Axis retreat was chaotic, a desperate scramble across hundreds of miles of desert terrain. Over the course of the 11-day battle lasting until November 4, 1942, the Axis suffered catastrophic losses. Their total casualties, including killed, wounded, and captured, numbered close to 59,000 men, a staggering figure. Allied losses, though significant, were considerably lower at around 13,500 soldiers. This decisive victory eliminated the Axis threat to Egypt and the Suez Canal, securing vital Allied shipping routes. It demonstrated the effectiveness of combined arms tactics and meticulous planning, a stark contrast to previous desert campaigns. The Battle of El Alamein stands as a testament to the resilience of the Allied forces and the strategic genius of Montgomery, marking the beginning of the end for Axis ambitions in North Africa. It paved the way for Operation Torch and the eventual encirclement of Axis forces in Tunisia, a monumental achievement. The desert sands bore witness to untold acts of bravery and sacrifice, a chapter etched in the annals of military history. This pivotal confrontation ensured that the Allies maintained their grip on the vital North African theater, a strategic jewel. Hundreds of thousands of shells screamed through the dark desert night. This terrifying opening signaled the beginning of the Second Battle of El Alamein. Operation Lightfoot commenced precisely at 9:40 p.m. on October 23, 1942. A thunderous barrage from 1,000 Allied artillery pieces striking Axis positions for 5 relentless hours. Infantrymen of the British 8th Army then began their perilous advance across a 13-mile front, navigating the notorious Devil's Gardens minefields, which were death traps. Royal Engineers bravely cleared paths under intense enemy fire, often crawling on hands and knees to disable mines and cut through layers of formidable barbed wire obstacles. German and Italian defenders dug into strong fortifications, unleashed a torrent of machine gun fire and small arms volleys, making every yard a brutal struggle. The first objective was to create 2 broad corridors through the Axis forward defenses, allowing Allied tanks to exploit the breaches. Rommel's Panzer Army Africa, though outnumbered, fought with immense determination, their 500 tanks and 400 anti-tank guns forming a formidable bulwark. Allied Grant and Sherman tanks followed the infantry's lanes, but progress was slow and agonizingly difficult, encountering hidden anti-tank nests and determined counterattacks from German and Italian divisions. The initial phase of Operation Lightfoot aimed to wear down the Axis forces in a brutal attritional battle, a strategy Montgomery steadfastly pursued. For several days, the fighting raged without respite, costing the Allies dearly, with around 500 tanks disabled or destroyed in the first wave alone. Yet the sheer numerical superiority of the Allies allowed them to absorb these significant losses far better than the beleaguered Axis forces. Supply lines for Rommel's men were already stretched thin, and Allied air power constantly harried his convoys, further exacerbating his desperate situation. Each night brought renewed assaults, each day a grim push against deeply entrenched positions, relentlessly testing the endurance of every soldier. The desert landscape itself became a formidable enemy, with sand dust and extreme temperatures adding to the human toll. Every soldier knew this was a fight for survival, a crucial moment in the North African campaign. The relentless pressure from Montgomery's 195,000 men slowly but surely chipped away at the Axis resolve. The fighting continued day after day, hour after hour, a test of endurance and willpower. This brutal, grinding engagement was designed to break the enemy's spirit and unravel their defensive network bit by agonizing bit. The scale of the offensive was unprecedented in desert warfare, setting the stage for future Allied triumphs across the region. 100,000 men simply vanished into the vast desert. The Second Battle of El Alamein marked a decisive, brutal turning point in the war. After 7 days of grinding attrition, Operation Lightfoot severely weakened Axis defenses. British Commonwealth forces numbering over 195,000 pushed relentlessly through tenacious defenses. General Montgomery's strategy shifted to a decisive breakthrough named Operation Supercharge. This began on November 2, 1942, with focused assaults under a moonless sky. Elite units like the New Zealand Division led the charge. They faced Rommel's Panzer Army Afrika severely depleted after a week of intense fighting. Axis forces around 100,000 strong were truly desperate. Fuel shortages crippled their remaining 400 tanks. Allied air superiority, absolute thousands of sorties flown daily. Hurricanes and Spitfires pounded enemy positions. The Royal Air Force controlled the desert skies. Axis supplies down to critical level for survival. Rommel requested permission to retreat from Hitler, initially refused. He was ordered to stand firm. Delay proved catastrophic. The British 8th Army exploited cracks in German-Italian lines. Their 1,200 tanks had room to maneuver. Sherman and Grant tanks surged through newly created gaps. German 88mm anti-tank guns fought fiercely. Numbers dwindled fast. Allied artillery barrages were incessant. 1,000 guns continuously fired. Axis morale began to crumble. Thousands of prisoners taken. One German division alone lost over 3,000 men. Italian units suffered too. Rommel eventually defied Hitler's direct order. He initiated a desperate retreat on November 4th. Withdrawal was chaotic, costly. Over 480 Axis tanks destroyed or abandoned. Thousands of vehicles abandoned. Ammunition dumps exploded. Fuel depots burned brightly. Pursuit lasted for days across hundreds of miles. Allied forces captured vast amounts of equipment. Over 30,000 Axis prisoners rounded up. Total Axis casualties neared 9,000 men, included killed, wounded, missing. Allied losses significant yet lower, around 13,000. Battles secured Egypt, removed Axis threat to Suez Canal. A massive psychological victory. Winston Churchill famously said, "Not the beginning of the end, but perhaps the end of the beginning." Axis' dream of conquering North Africa was shattered. Supply lines stretched to unsustainable degree. Fighting marked a pivotal moment in the Second World War. It paved the way for Operation Torch Allied landings in Morocco, Algeria. Rommel's reputation as the Desert Fox was severely tarnished. His forces in full flight. Strategic landscape of region transformed. A battle of immense scale. Desert bore witness to unimaginable destruction. Every soldier knew stakes were incredibly high. Hard-won victory boosted Allied confidence globally. Demonstrated German-Italian forces could be defeated. Allied advance continued relentlessly west. Tens of thousands of square miles of territory liberated. Toll on human life immense. Courage and sacrifice defined every day of conflict. This battle truly changed desert warfare forever, legacy enduring. British 8th Army's relentless pressure was overwhelming. A testament to combined arms warfare. Infantry, artillery, armor, air power played crucial roles. Desert sand soaked up blood of many nations. Strategic implications resonated for years. A turning point for the Allies. 100,000 shells fired on some nights. Logistical effort was staggering. Supplying such a large force in desert, a monumental task. Victory came at heavy price, but importance was undeniable. One of the decisive moments of the 1940s. World watched as tide turned in North Africa. A battle remembered for generations.